Hey guys, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and I'm back from my trip in Krakow, and I'm totally doing actually a travel vlog on that and working on that video, and will be up soon. But first I decided to do a review of Season 3 of Star Wars Visions, because I have to say it did not disappoint, because yes, as I've been saying a couple times on this channel, this is not a good time to be a Star Wars fan. I mean, at this point it's nearly impossible to get excited for anything Star Wars. Like, after Tales of the Empire was terrible and Tales of the Underworld was mediocre, I even gave up on their animated projects, and I'm not even that much interested in the Darth Maul show, which is such a real shame, because how Darth Maul basically his rise to power in the crime gangs, though, like in between Solo and Season 7 of the Clone Wars, yeah, that could totally have the potential for a very interesting, compelling story, especially that Darth Talon apparently is gonna be there too, but at this point it's just really impossible to be excited for anything Star Wars these days. But with the exception of Star Wars Visions, like anytime an announcement or trailer for Star Wars Visions comes out, you betcha I'm completely on board on that. And why is that? Because that's the thing, they are giving it to various creative Japanese writers. I mean, for Season 2 it was international writers, but for Season 1 and Season 3 it's Japanese writers for anime, and they are basically giving them complete freedom to create their stories without much input of modern Lucasfilm. And as a result, those writers actually have far more love and care for Star Wars than anybody in Lucasfilm. As a result, almost all of those animated shorts are very compelling stories that truly feel like Star Wars, and yet they also very much truly feel like anime, because they technically are anime. And that's the most wonderful thing about Star Wars Visions. I mean, Season 1 and 3, because Season 2 was cartoons from all over the world, but animation styles from all over the world, but for Season 1 and 3, it's a perfect, wonderful blend in between anime and Star Wars, because those both feel like anime, while very much consistent with the Star Wars universe. And that's what makes this short so wonderful. And the first short I want to talk about in Season 3 is a sequel to The Duel in Season 1. And The Duel was very much one of my favorite, actually not the favorite, of all those Star Wars shows in all those seasons. And I didn't particularly felt that there was really a need for a sequel, because the first one told a pretty much compelling story, but at the same time I felt there was no harm in that. And I have to say, The Duel, The Payback, might actually even be better than the original The Duel. I loved it so much, especially that now the story is so much bigger and grander in scope, and while bigger doesn't always mean better, and I'm actually frequently rebuking this thing on this channel that bigger means better, but in this case I think it was indeed better, especially that I love that, well, our Ronin was basically still very much a former Sith who now hunts down other Sith, but in this case he's actually facing a fallen Jedi who, although still very much wields a blue lightsaber, he's so hell-bent on vengeance that he's practically turned to the dark side. And even his final defeat was pretty symbolic, actually, how, spoiler alert, he picks up a red lightsaber before getting defeated, and the action and how it's choreographed is just excellent. This is like some of the Star Wars fighting and action choreography at its best, actually. Like, the fighting here is just so spectacular and phenomenal. And also another thing I noticed about that Jedi was that, because again, more of a machine than a man, you could totally see like he was basically inspired by Darth Vader, and in some ways it also makes sense, because Star Wars Visions are basically forms of legends, like basically you could say legends that are told in the Star Wars generations. So you could basically argue that this is actually taking place many years in the future, and this is now the legend that Darth Vader has become. But another thing that this Jedi actually, another character, that this Jedi kind of gave me vibes, is actually Atris from Knights of the Old Republic, the Sith Lords, in a way that still technically very much considers himself as Jedi, just as Atris did, but because both his and her view of the Jedi worldview has become so black and white that they actually both have to completely turn to the dark side without realizing it. That's the interesting thing, that because of being so dogmatically into the whole Jedi doctrine, that they basically completely strayed from it without realizing it. Actually, Yeah, newsflash, there is a thunderstorm outside and it's kind of, as you see, getting very dark in this room, so just had to turn on the lights. But yeah, the duel payback, that was such a spectacular episode. Like, basically, as I said, it's a sequel to The Duel, which was very much my favorite of all those shorts up to this point, but now I think Duel Payback might actually be better. It's basically a sequel I didn't know I needed. Then the next story, also really good, is The Song of Four Wings, and this is about a princess whose family has been killed by the vampire, and now she's on the run from the Empire and joins the rebellion, but then she finds a baby alien that she befriends and basically starts taking care of him like she was his mother, and kind of basically develops a mother-son bond with him. And yeah, I also really love that episode, especially that I have been saying a couple of times, I do kind of love stories about parenthood, even if I'm not a parent, but really wish to be someday. And I really love this mother-son relationship. In some ways, it was kind of giving me vibes of The Mandalorian, but I honestly think this is better than The Mandalorian. Granted, that's probably because The Mandalorian is no longer a good show at this point. Like, first season was actually pretty good, and I used to be a huge lover and defender of season 2, but upon season 3, that's when I realized that in retrospective, the show, like all the cameos and all, made The Mandalorian season 2 look actually better than it actually was, but ultimately we're going off on a tangent. But, so yes, I do think that this was much better than The Mandalorian, especially that this princess character, she was so much more likable from than Jared could ever be, and maybe it's me again ranting about Pedro Pascal, but oh well. And so yes, I really loved that episode. The action was really good here, but really the key thing, the true heart, was though the mother-son bond that the princess formed with this alien little creature. So yes, The Song of Four Wings was another really great episode. And then we also had the sequel to The Ninth Jedi, which I think was very logically tied into the original The Ninth Jedi, because in contrast to The Duel, The Ninth Jedi very much ended on a cliffhanger and there very much was room for more stories, so I'm glad they chose to continue that one, because The Ninth Jedi truly deserves a sequel. And also next year we are actually getting basically like a spin-off series that's basically gonna be entirely devoted to The Ninth Jedi. So you could basically say those two episodes basically served as two pilots to the actual Star Wars actual anime show, The Ninth Jedi. But overall, I also really loved The Ninth Jedi, but it ended on a gigantic cliffhanger, and it would really be a shame now not to continue it, because yes, all I will say about The Ninth Jedi, that it actually felt more like a pilot than a full complete story like most episodes is. But honestly, it's not the only one. Several episodes actually felt more like pilots in this one, with clear intention of continuing. And also another episode I really loved was Yuko's Treasure. And what I loved about the episode is that it was so kiddie and child friendly, but it was actually kind of the charm and shows the diversity and uniqueness of each of those episodes of Star Wars Visions, because at the end of the day, this almost felt like an episode of a Saturday morning cartoon, the type of cartoon we've all been watching in our childhood, and I loved that. And I also loved how it was basically a treasure hunt adventure story with two orphans escaping from evil pirates that very much seek the treasure, and then pretty predictable, but that was actually part of the charm. As I said, at the end of the day, it felt almost like basically a Saturday morning cartoon meets the Goonies set in the Star Wars universe, and that's what was really the key charm of that. So yes, Yuko's Treasure was also really good. But I also really love The Lost Ones, which on the other hand is a sequel to The Village Bride from Star Wars Vision Season 1, and that's another episode I really loved. What I really loved is basically how relatable the story is. It's basically that the female Jedi from The Village Bride, from the original episode, now she discovers her old master, whom she admired and basically did her best to follow his teachings, only to realize he's turned evil. And this is such a relatable story, especially that plenty of people had actually those type of people that they valued, viewed as mentors, only to see that they might actually not be as fantastic people as they seem at first. And we do all our best to follow their teachings and do what would make them proud, only to realize that they might actually not be the fantastic people we've all imagined them to be, and we feel so heartbroken. That's really what this That's why it actually might actually be my favorite episode, either that or the Duel Payback, but I guess in terms of pure entertainment and spectacular action, then Duel the Payback all the way, but The Lost Ones on the other hand, in terms of actually of making you think and relatability and all, but and also her Jedi Master did kind of give me also vibes of Griffith from the Berserk. I'm not sure if it was intentional really, but he did give me vibes, but yep. The Lost Ones, the sequel to Village Bride, was just excellent and really amazing and truly relatable and truly made you think. And finally, I'll also have to talk about the very last one, Black. Like, I couldn't possibly not talk about that one because that one was made by David Productions, which is the studio behind JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so there's no way I could have not talked about that one, but even though this story in no way resembles JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's actually a very different story because basically tells about an Imperial Stormtrooper who's basically at the battlefield and basically all those visions in his head. It's kind of like a psychological thriller basically and kind of a psychological tragedy in some ways because he's basically his final thoughts before dying and also maybe all his regrets in life about that he's made while being a stormtrooper and all that, but there was some really powerful stuff actually, even though Black is not the type of episode I'll be rewatching constantly, in contrast to Duel, Payback, as well as the Song of Four Wings, like, or even the Lost Ones. Yeah, like those ones I could be rewatching actually, and I'm in the mood to rewatch them soon actually, but the same cannot be said for Black. This is very much a one-time episode to watch. I mean, maybe in like a couple of years I'll be in the mood to rewatch it again, but for now I think this is very much a one-time watch. But overall, Star Wars Visions Season 3, or Volume 3 as it's actually called, did not disappoint one bit. I still very much love Star Wars Visions. As I said in the beginning of this video, it's just nearly impossible these days to get excited for anything Star Wars, but Star Wars Visions is the exception, because as I said, thankfully the writers are given complete creative freedom without any of the Lucasfilm input, and as a result, those writers clearly care and love Star Wars far more than Kennedy and cronies ever could. As a result, now this is real Star Wars. Star Wars in the galaxy far, far away, and not some Disney Star Wars. No, but an actual real Star Wars in the galaxy far, far away. Which is why I'll keep gladly coming up to Visions. I'm hoping that they are gonna do Volume 4 of Visions, because like no season of Visions has failed me to disappoint. At this point, I'm still very much engaged in watching all those anthology episodes with a real enjoyment and smile on my face, so yes. I'm hoping that they're very much gonna continue. Like what I would also, for example, want is them to, just as they did a sequel to The Duel, as well as a sequel to The Village Bride, and then they're basically planning to turn the Ninth Jedi into a whole anime show actually. I'm also hoping for a sequel to Lop and Ocho, because that story also very much ended on a cliffhanger. So I'm hoping that they are having more in store for that as well, because that story truly deserves continuation. In fact, maybe actually it should get the same thing that the Ninth Jedi will get, a whole show, because the cliffhanger that Lop and Ocho ended back in Volume 1 actually, it actually felt like a story for an entire season instead of like a story that could easily be resolved in just the next episode. We'll see what happens. But maybe on the other hand, I'm hoping that maybe for Volume 4 they will do once again what they did with Volume 2. Again, go around to international studios, each with their own Star Wars vision. Maybe that should be for the best. For like Volume 4, they will go again to international studios, and then to Volume 5, again Japanese studios only. That might be for the best. Like for Volume 1, Japanese studios. Volume 2, international studios with 2 Japanese studios in. Then Volume 3, all Japanese studios and anime. So maybe Volume 4, international once again, and then Volume 5, Japanese anime once again. But whatever the decision they make, either way, I'm still completely on board with Star Wars Visions, and I'm just loving all those episodes and very much hoping for more. I'm not excited for Star Wars, but Star Wars Visions is the exception. So, folks, here are my thoughts on Star Wars Visions Volume 3. Did you see Star Wars Visions Volume 3? What did you think? And talk to you very soon in my travel vlog on my trip to Krakow. Talk to you then. Bye!